Sweet liberty, it's hot. I'm sweating so much I can't see anything. The rain doesn't help either, pounding against the visor of my helmet. I can't admit to the others that I'm afraid to fight the bugs. That's treason. These guys are veterans, and I've just gotten here from basic. Lasers, anti-mat rifles, command has seen fit to give them better equipment for righteous freedom. Me, shotgun and a basic machine gun. You gotta run before you can fly, I guess, and I've done a lot of running. This planet is far from what basic training showed me. Trees, rain, heat, and bugs bigger than the cars on Super Earth are everywhere. Keep moving, is what they're yelling at me. Too many bug breaches to try and keep up with. We have to get the pumps going. The bugs hate it. Why do they hate freedom? I hear their clicking from the forts getting ever closer. A Helldiver falls prey to a bug out of sight. No scream, just a roar. Justice will be mine, brother. I rounded the corner, sunlight peeking through the miasmic haze of fog, and there it stood. A big bastard of a bug, yellowish orange on its backside, bulbous and fat. I take a knee as training taught, and let out a long, glorious burst of machine gun fire into what I think is the back of the anti-democratic insect. I was wrong. Instead, it was facing me, its front covered by the haze, and it was charging me. But the machine gun is strong and democratic, and within seconds the bug's head exploded, sending bits and pieces of its filth into the air. I can feel freedom and democracy flowing through my veins. This is what they said being a Helldiver was like, and I can feel the rush. More bugs come, and they each taste freedom like no other from a shotgun. Dropping them left and right, I return to my comrades, and we get those pumps flowing for Super Earth. Objective complete. Extraction was another thing. I feel powerful. I can feel freedom coursing through my veins, bugs exploding, cut down by machine gun fire, and I even call in my first turret to kill them. Absolutely beautiful display of power. Until I exploded because a fellow Helldiver called in an eagle strike that I accidentally ran into. I love Helldivers 2. My goodness, this game is amazing. I am probably one of the very few people who actually played Helldivers 1, and I really enjoyed it as well. I was a little worried about how this game would work in a third-person perspective, but Arrowhead Games has knocked it out of the park. While I do think the game is one of the best games of the year so far, it's not perfect. Helldivers 2 wears its influences on its sleeves. Its tongue-in-cheek approach to the world is there from the opening cutscene. The influences from Starship Troopers, Terminator, and Halo are front and center, and it's not ashamed of it. I wouldn't be either, considering how low Halo has fallen. If only Xbox players could play this game. Helldivers 2 is a third-person, horde-style shooter with missions that revolve around teams of players working together to finish objectives. At first sight, I thought the game looked like it was going to be difficult with stratagems and general survival, but it's actually as simple or difficult as you want it to be. While the shooting mechanics look like they would be super simple, there's a surprising amount of depth to them, and that's something I can say for the rest of the mechanics as well. Simple at first, with a surprising amount of depth. Shooting has stability to it. You aren't as accurate while running, and your aim is represented by 2 reticles instead of your normal 1. There's a dot on your screen that shows where you are looking, but there is a circle that shows where the barrel of your gun is aiming. If you've ever played War Thunder, you'll know instantly what I'm talking about. If the barrel is bouncing around, it won't hit where you're aiming. This requires you to slow down and maybe even crouch or go prone to get the most steady shots. Stims regain health quickly, but also make you invulnerable for the duration of the stim, so using them tactically is an option for tanking a few hits before the effects wear off. Stratagems make the game very fun and are essentially how you build your character loadout. They range from airstrikes and very offensive damage to defensive stratagems like turrets and secondary weapons. I've been enjoying a terrible no ammo build of an arc thrower and the scythe paired with a laser rover. It's awful, and I love it, but that's what is great about Helldivers 2. You can build whatever you want, however you want, and you can still be somewhat effective in killing the enemies. Stratagems are essentially utility items that you call in by holding down a button, and then you hit a set of arrow keys on your D-pad or WASD keys. The community's been equating this to Dance Dance Revolution, and I'm kind of here for it. However, be careful where you call those in, because friendly fire is always on in this game, and one wrong move could turn you or your teammates into bloody pieces. Weapons are loud and punchy with what I think is appropriate recoil. Rifles are easy to control, but the big boy guns recoil heavily. You're not shooting a full auto autocannon and hitting anything after the first shot unless the enemy is literally on top of you. The variety of weapons is also nice, from machine guns to railguns, shoulder-mounted artillery, lasers, orbital bombardments. It's fantastic, and the graphics are great. These planets feel alive. The weather effects are very nice, with what seems like some sort of day and night cycle that happens in missions, and the lighting is also fantastic. Weather effects like fog and rain add to the atmosphere, and in some cases, like on the bug planets, certain objectives can be completed to remove the fog that's been created by spores in the air. Combine all these little things with animations that are incredibly well done, and you have a system that makes for one of the most cinematic games to come out in a while, without cutscenes. But democracy must be spread per bullet, and who or what is on the receiving end of all that freedom? There are two factions in Helldivers 2, the Terminids and the Automatons. The Terminids are a race of bugs that live underground in tunnels and hives, and they pop out of the ground to attack you. We kill them and use them for oil, basically. Well, as per non-democratic propaganda, but don't you dare believe that, because that's treason. Think Starship Troopers. They range in size from tiny little guys to the Bile Titan, a hulking monstrosity that can take a team of divers, stratagems and all, to kill, or one very well-equipped and skilled Helldiver could also take one down. The other faction is the Automatons, and they are essentially the Terminator, and they are socialists. They also range in difficulty from easy to kill robots to giant tanks and mechs. The robots actually use guns to shoot back and take a completely different style of play to fight against. Bugs need to be fought with constant movement and repositioning, whereas the robots require a lot more heavy cover to hide behind in order to shoot back. These two different styles of fighting are one of the ways that the game stays feeling relatively fresh. Bored of bugs and running away? Try the robots, and vice versa. What makes this game so special is how it's focused on fun gameplay and community-driven content while still being a live service game. I hate live service, and I get it. Most people seem to think that as well. And while it's yet to be seen how Arrowhead handles the live service elements of Helldivers 2, the game itself has been great to play. So what do you actually do besides killing the enemies of democracy? Well, missions are a mix of different objectives that you can choose from on a world map. They can range from simple kill X number of enemies, to fuel, arm, and launch an ICBM missile, to kill Bile Titans. There are quite a few different missions, and they seem to get more complex in the higher difficulty levels. There are 9 difficulty levels to choose from, and you need to be equipped properly for each one. The higher level the mission, the more you'll see tougher enemies. Currently, I've been chilling in the tier 6 to tier 7 ranges, kind of grinding out credits to unlock new stuff. Missions give credits, XP, battle pass points, and samples, which are used to upgrade your spaceship. Upgrading your ship gives a passive upgrade to your stratagems, as well as providing cosmetic changes, and these use the samples collected throughout missions. You also use money earned on missions to unlock new stratagems to take into the missions. War bonds are used to level up the battle pass, which, in a first for me, will never expire. All battle passes can be unlocked forever and will never expire. This ensures that you can keep unlocking new weapons and armor, gear, emotes, etc. for the foreseeable future and keep some sort of grind in the game. Arrowhead has been more than generous so far with the battle pass. The base one is free and is actually the normal unlock path for new gear. Everyone gets this. These credits can also be found in-game as well during missions. Kudos to Arrowhead for that one. There is a store where you can buy armor with your super credits, but everything I've seen in there so far has been very reasonably priced, if not downright cheap in pricing. Where Call of Duty has $30 battle passes and $30 skins, most of the skins in the store for Helldivers 2 are like $2, $2.50 for an armor set, and like $1 for a helmet, if that. I think helmets are usually under $1. Take my money, please. What really makes Helldivers 2 so special is the community. Each planet has a meter attached to it, and that planet has a control meter showing how much control one faction has on the planet. Helldivers can land on those planets and do missions to help liberate the planets from the enemy and push them back, with each player contributing to the total control that Super Earth has on each planet. Planets are contained in an overall sector, and if all the planets in a sector are liberated by players, then players move on to the next sector. This is the same for the enemies as well. They can also gain control of the planets and sectors to push the players back. However, it's been revealed that there is a game master behind the scenes at Arrowhead who is pulling the strings to reveal a story as time goes on. And this is desperately needed, as there is no real story in Helldivers 2. This might involve directly changing the amount of robots on a planet by changing their controlled percentage, or he might give us all a free-to-use stratagem for a day as a reward for completing orders. This sort of thing really helps to build stories for the community. Just ask any player about Malevelon Creek and, well, we don't talk about it, but we will take the creek back. It's possible in the future that maybe even Super Earth itself could be invaded if all the sectors are taken. There's a lot of possibilities here. We might actually get to land on Super Earth and see if it's actually the utopia we're led to believe it is, but of course it is. It's always a utopia. Most people in this world will not see Super Earth in all of its glory. At least it seems that way from what little lore you can squeeze from the characters on the ship and in the flavor text of the missions. And this is just one way the community gets involved. And it should also be mentioned that the meter of liberation attached to a planet is affected by every single player playing the game, not just you. So the community is absolutely taking control of planets as a whole. There are also orders that you can receive as a community. They could be to hold a planet by doing special missions, or free certain planets and keep them free for a certain number of real-life days. These events have nice rewards at the end of them and are a way to funnel players into a certain area of fighting. But outside of the game, the community has really taken things to heart. People are role-playing in the game, they are creating amazing art, and it seems like most everyone is really getting into the fantasy of Helldivers 2, and I love it. This is the fun that we had back in the day with Halo 3, 2, and many other games. Arrowhead has made us all play pretend, as if we were little kids again. This is what gaming's all about. It turns out, all you have to do to make a good game is create a game around the meme of dudes will see this and think, hell yeah, and it works. Okay, so I've been gushing about how much I love this game. I said I was skeptical about it at first, and honestly, some of the skepticism remains. This is a live service game, and the core gameplay loop is to drop onto planets and do objectives. However, that loop never ends, and as far as I can tell, the only real end game that Helldivers 2 has is that you're done when you reach max level and unlock all of your upgrades. This will take many hours, sure, but that's the same loop you will do from the beginning of the game all the way to the end, just at harder difficulties. It's a great loop, if not a perfect loop, don't get me wrong. Have I gotten my $40 worth? Absolutely. But I would be lying if I said that I'm not at least a little worried about its longevity as a live service. Will players keep playing the same set of missions over and over for a long time? Well, if the upcoming leaks are true, there are some cool things on the horizon to keep things fresh, and the addition of the mechs alone has been really fun, but I think that if nothing changes in the objectives area, it could grow stale. There's no official story here, no campaign, nothing like that. Not that we've really seen yet. And most of the stories we tell are things that happened while on mission in-game. Overall, in the grand scheme of Super Earth, there's not really a lot there. There is some lore, but it's fairly sparse, and even now I'm seeing players on Reddit say that they are hoping that we get some sort of lore or actual story updates as we do the missions and finish the orders. And as someone who loves a good story, I wouldn't mind this either. I'm hoping the Game Master can pull out all the stops, and I trust him, But for now, there hasn't been much in the way of a story outside of the community kind of carrying the Malevelon Creek incident, and for me, I really want to dig deep into this world, but I can't, and maybe that's by the design of Super Earth. They don't want you to look at them. They want you to keep your eyes on the enemy that threatens our way of life, just like every government in the real world. Another bit of a bugbear of mine comes down to the movement, particularly the vaulting system. There's no jumping or swimming in Helldivers 2, only a system where you will climb over certain objects if you're holding down the A button or sprinting. Your character will automatically vault or climb by themselves, and many times that becomes a bit of an annoyance when you are trying to pick up samples or ammo that is near a wall, and you end up clambering over the wall instead of restocking. Even worse, you decide to climb on top of the resupply pod instead of getting the ammo that it dropped. I can't really see a reason as to why we just don't have a jump mechanic. The only jump you can kind of do is when you dive to the ground, but it's almost always a jump that makes you go in whichever direction and then down as opposed to straight up. The only thing that can is a jump pack, and it's not very high. There have been many clips online of people getting stuck inside of holes or behind objects that they can't climb when a jump would have helped them get out. Crashing has been a big issue, as well as bugs. I know. The quick play feature had massive issues at launch. I've gotten stuck behind the door where the pods are in the entrance of the ship, and those are just a few. A lot of these issues have been ironed out a bit by now, but they will still pop their heads up every now and then. There's also the anti-cheat feature that people seem to not be too happy with because it's a kernel level anti-cheat, and Helldivers 2 doesn't have any PvP. Personally, coming from a Warzone player, I wish Warzone had an actual kernel level anti-cheat because whatever Ricochet is, it ain't working. But I digress. Different topic for a different day. Helldivers 2 also seems to act up when I try to use shadow play to record it. Maybe it's the anti-cheat not vibing with it, but the game tends to have a lot more issues while shadow play is running than when it's not. I also wish that the Xbox players could play this as well. We need more brothers in arms, and I would like for the Sony exclusivity to end personally. Performance has been fine for me. I'm on an RTX 4070 with an i7 13700K, and I have a mix of settings that get me around 100 FPS on average, which is more than enough for a game like this. There's no DLSS, FSR, or similar upscaling, which I would like to see. Helldivers 2 is a fantastic game with lots of future potential. However, I have to review it based on how it is now and not how it might be in a few weeks from now. I'm excited to see what they put out, but also a little worried to see what happens next. Live service has the potential to be great if it's done right. I'm just hoping that Arrowhead is the studio that can actually pull it off. We've seen a lot of failures in the live service industry recently, but all of those games had one thing in common. The game sucked. Helldivers 2 does not suck, and it is what I would consider to be one of the best games to come out so far this year. I'm hoping they break the crappy live service trend. The game has the perfect foundation for it. Only time will tell. Until then, brothers, we fight for the creek, and we dive straight into hell for democracy. 9 out of 10.